Hi, this is Julie at Love's Beginning, and today I'm going to be talking about dropping stories. What I'm invited to do more and more is when I'm in a situation to look at all the multitudinous stories I'm telling, to catch myself telling stories. Am I telling myself stories about physical limits? Am I telling myself stories about self doubt? It's all our thoughts, the nature of our thoughts, and listening to ourselves verbally, what we're expressing to others. Am I telling stories about limits of any kind, making myself or others subject to those limits? Am I thinking those limits? And what I'm shown is if I tell a story about a particular thing, maybe I'm in a situation and I'm telling myself the story that it is very difficult, and I'm projecting into the future that it will continue to be difficult. This could be something as ordinary as being with my kids and feeling irritated, feeling like, oh, I'm engaged in this activity now, but I feel drawn toward this one, but I can't seem to end this one to get to that one. Just even very simple everyday struggles. It does not have to be dramatic. But when we catch ourselves in that tension of, well, I'm here having this conversation with somebody, but I'd really rather be over here doing this task, and we're feeling that back and forth tension. Any story we tell ourselves and believe and see caused in the past. Um, I'm irritated now because my kids should go play so I can do the ironing. This is a funny one because I never iron, but just recently I wanted to do some ironing. So it's not really characteristic of me to be like, oh, if only I could do the ironing. But I found myself in that situation. It was a very ordinary one, it wasn't a very heavy or dramatic one. So I'm being asked to see these stories in all areas of my life. Um, the big ones and the little everyday ones. So when you feel this pull, this tug of war, and you see that you're telling stories about people, what they should do, about what you're limited by, even about politeness. Um, and any story we tell is a block to the inspiration that wants to come to us and through us, the the speech that is our harmonic self that will be expressed through us with the flavor of our personality, the action that is in alignment with divine will and is the action of our harmonic self that is at peace with everybody else. Really getting down to how it feels to be a conduit, what do we want to say, for fear, for struggle, for effort, for ego as fearful one in charge. I've got to do this. I've got to finish this. It's all on me. It's heavy, and I've got to accomplish it and achieve it and finish it and be in charge. It's a heavy me sense. Even in a very ordinary, subtle way, this is what I'm being directed to. Versus everything I need is right here in this moment. I am fully supported. I am open to the next impulse. And it might be, I'll talk to you later. I'm going to go do this ironing now. It could be very, very simple. Um, and it feels very, very simple. It feels effortless and it flows. It's not met with resistance. on the part of other people. Um, the nature of it is flow, and it comes from a sense of ease. So it's hard to explain, but if our action in our speech is not based on stories and the struggle of the one who is separate from everybody else, but is flowing from the one of us that comes through each one of us, that's a felt difference. And that's a choice point for each of us. We can feel what we're feeling in each moment, and we have the decision to allow either the old struggling version of me to come through in thought, in action, and speech, or I can allow what really is, which is love flowing through this manifested aspect, to flow through. Every moment is that decision, but it's not a high pressure decision. It's a coming to know how you feel and a coming to trust that and allowing that to flow. Feeling is important, being able to sense what feels contracted and what feels expanded. And what they're pointing out to me about stories, and when I say they, because I guess I feel some people might be seeing this video who haven't maybe been to my blog or anything, I'm talking about a source energy collective that I call the Imaginary Friends. When I'm talking to, I'm often channeling and also talking from my own experience too, but being helped along. So when I attach to a story and I hold that story throughout my day, no matter what it is, and I base thought and action in speech on that story, I'm actually being reactive to a story, something, an artifact from the past. What I'm being invited to is it's like a diamond. It's like so new, fresh, and sparkly and powerful. It's it feels very new. It's not new at all because we've been coming to it this whole time, and it feels very natural for us. It's our natural way of functioning, but it also feels exciting. So we'll go back to when I'm going through the day attached to a story of any kind. And taking that artifact from the past and holding it to me and making it my reason to think, to speak, to act. I'm missing all the information that wants to flow to me and through me right now, be expressed as me, lovingly. I'm missing all that. I've been holding on to that story, no matter what the story is. If it's a story about war, if it's a story about love. The thing about holding on to stories and definitions and defenses and protectiveness, you can feel how that feels, right? You just feel how that feels. Versus walking into the vulnerability of the now moment and knowing that you're completely taken care of, completely supported, and you trust. That's a different kind of safety. The safety we get from the stories we believe, the stories we insist on, and the stories that might conflict with others. At the end, in the final analysis, is the foundation of it is shaky, unstable. The stories themselves are brittle. They won't hold up for us. But what is always here for us is the moment, the now moment, where we're open to inspiration. So I'm being encouraged to just stay there. I'm being encouraged to use the breath a lot, to return, like, hello, are you telling some stories here? Are some stories accumulating? Are you starting to feel tension? What's all that tension about? Why does the tension accumulate during the day? Are you questions I'm being asked? Why are you starting to hold on to a lot of stories and to try to control things? What they point out about stories is when you're holding on to that artifact from the past and attempting to project that into a future, your future, a separate future, that's not timelines converging. But when you're allowing, that is timelines converging. When you're allowing it all to flow, when you're not insisting on striking out there with a story and making sure that story comes to fruition, um, it's like the action of a separate self versus the action of the shared and harmonic self, and they feel different. You can still have passion and inspiration and all kinds of deeply felt action and flow um, in this state, and then you can have really driven action in the primarily ego soaked, fear soaked state too, and they feel different. They feel different. We're very much used to the effort, the fearful effort habit, that mode of functioning, and we're less accustomed to trusting in every single moment that what we need will come to us and through us, and dropping all stories about limits, um, physical limits, things we're supposed to be able to do and not supposed to be able to do, things we're supposed to be able to accomplish and not supposed to be able to accomplish. So they're showing me when I'm clinging to one of these stories and allowing thought. Yeah, I'm laughing to myself because I could see how I do this every day in one way or another. Allowing thought, speech, and action to come from that storyline instead of from just this beautiful what is right now. Um, my story is going to come into conflict with somebody else's story. And if you're empathic, this can really, really help. Well, we are all that way, but if if you identify that way, and that's another story, but that's okay. And you have trouble in public places because of all the data and that for everything you feel. Um, if you get really good, if you take this invitation to drop all of the stories and you get really good at it, you you feel very good, even with a lot of people and a lot of data. You just receive the data you're meant to receive, um, and you don't receive the data you don't need. And when you receive the data, you don't judge it. So there's a lot of effort and struggle that has become habitual for us that makes the empathic state one of struggle. But that's good, that's as it should be. If we come deeply into this empathic state, but we feel all the struggle, all this disturbance, we have to find a way to let it settle down, and that's through here. That's through feeling and learning to trust and learning to drop all the stories. So this is where I find myself now, dropping the most subtle stories and just staying here very simply in the now. Who are you? What are you doing? What's happening? You know what? It's always up for question. It always could change, and that's called being open. Sometimes you have an objective, and you're not clinging to it, and you're not tense. You just have it, and you're aware of it. You might feel passionate about it. Don't we all feel passionate about this journey we're on? But you're not going to use your story being shown as a lightsaber um, as a way to come in conflict with somebody else's story. The conflict is useless. It just completely distracts us from all the abundance that is here in the now. So when we find ourselves in conflict with somebody, we probably know pretty quickly, oh, this is useless. I can set it down. But we might not yet realize the depth to which we're in conflict with ourselves. Um, having these competing stories in our minds about I should do this, no, I should do that, instead of just like, okay, I'm going to settle down and wait and see what I actually end up doing. Oh, I'm doing that. I'm doing this now. That feels whole. That feels right. That feels inspired. Okay, I'm doing this now. And that's the simplicity of it. So they just always invite me to take a breath, because when you're caught up in your stories, your suppositions, your critiques, your analysis, your judgment, you're gone. You're gone. You're on vacation to the shared and harmonic self that is just waiting to be expressed through all of us. It's always there. Um, it's always it's waiting for us to set the ego version of us down, so the flow can just flow through us, and it'll wait forever. It's timeless. It's beyond time. But what we can do is notice when we're in storyland and when we're in the war, the struggle, the mental space of competing storyland. It's this terrible thing has happened and I have to stop it because of this, or it's happening because I did this in the past, and I have to struggle to get to this place where this good thing is happening. It can even, we tell stories about good things that are happening too, and we tell struggle stories about them. If you look at the very subtle thought patterns, and we have no choice but to look at them as we become more and more sensitive, and we feel the contractedness of such thought patterns in ourselves and others, but we're still interacting. There's no choice to except to go where it feels good. And where it feels good is in the flow of this now moment. So if you are experiencing a lot of struggle, I don't want you to have to struggle more to be in the now. That is not fun. Instead, I would just like to say, you're not alone. We're all learning quite naturally to put down all these conflicting storylines in our minds and to allow harmonic thought, speech, and action just to flow through us very simply in ways that feel good. We're all collectively getting into the habit of not holding on to this physical tension, protectiveness, defensiveness, um, protecting this separate identity. We're all relaxing into the abundance of this now moment together. And whatever is happening in our lives, it is perfect. It's perfect for helping us set down what isn't functional for us and for helping us just thrive and expand wherever we are. It's perfect. It couldn't be better, even if it looks sucky, and especially if it looks sucky and challenging. Um, it could be something like on the macro level, like you have a particular big challenge in your life, or it could just be something on the micro level, like you're just feeling very unsettled for one reason or another. It's good, it's perfect. It's giving you that opportunity to figure out that modality that is just so simple and has no conflicting storylines. It's just now, and it's just flow, and it feels very good. And if you're not there now, you might say, oh, yeah, I spend pockets of my time there, and it does feel good. And if you realize, I'm just learning how to expand that into all the time, and I can let all the stories go, that feels good. If you tell yourself, I have to kind of fight up this mountain and make myself stay in the now all the time, that doesn't feel good. That's another storyline. So we're doing this together. We're setting down all the conflicting storylines together. And if you look at what you experienced during your day through that lens, you will appreciate what we're all doing together, what you're learning, to release. And I know when I look at it from that perspective, that feels very good. Thanks. I'm having trouble stopping this. Excuse me. I might have to learn to edit so, just so I can cut off the